Hello everyone, welcome back to the YouTube channel, welcome back to another video. My name's Dr. Alex George and I'm 2 years alcohol free. I'm passionate about alcohol free living and the joy that it can bring to my life and to your life. And my role and what I want to do with this channel is help support you if you are sober curious, if you're someone that wants to cut down on alcohol, or if you want to go completely alcohol free to get the most out of this way of life, because I think there's so much for each of us to gain from it. Now in this video I'm going to be talking about what it's like in the first 4 weeks of sobriety, what to expect. Why am I doing that? Because I think there are common themes that people do experience that's shared among many people. So obviously we're individual people and some stuff might relate to you, other things you're like, that's not me. But I think what's really clear is there are lots of things that do commonly crop up. And what I want to do is support you so that you can expect them, know what's coming, be able to understand why they're happening and also know when they're going to stop and what you can do about it if it's becoming an issue. So I hope this video is going to be really positive and helpful to you. Before we start, please do subscribe to the channel. Why? Because it means that when a new video is released, by the way, we're releasing these videos every Sunday, you'll get a notification, you're not likely to miss it, but also it does support the channel to grow. So thank you. I also want to say a really big thanks to everyone that's been commenting on the videos. Yes, it's been lovely to hear the feedback that you've enjoyed this content, but more so to see how much support you've given each other. Like when you scroll through some of the videos, some of the comments that people have said, with people putting, I've just quit on the 1st of January, and then, people saying like, well done, you've done absolutely amazingly. For example, Denise, we've got Ray here who quit on the 1st of December and everyone's supporting them. It's just amazing to kind of scroll through and see people sharing their experiences, but also saying, hey, look, you've got this. So please do continue that. It's good humanity. It's a nice thing to see. Right, let's start this video. So what to expect in those first 4 weeks. So I remember when I stopped drinking on the 4th December 2022, I basically stopped and I was like, okay, so what now? What happens now? What am I going to expect? And I kind of went online, started reading different books to kind of learn about what might happen to me over the next few weeks. And I found it really intriguing and interesting to find that there were patterns that did seem to crop up. So the first 24 hours for me was really about going, oh, okay, so this is real now. I've made this decision. Often in reality, we think about this idea of going alcohol-free for a long time before we actually do it. For some people, it might be like an event happened, there was some sort of either difficult event or something embarrassing or whatever, and they go, right, I'm stopping drinking. But even in those scenarios, most people have been thinking about it for a while. But for most people, I think it is something that you do kind of sit with. So that first 24 hours, I think, is a moment of like, oh, okay, we're doing this, we're going to do this. And I think sometimes you have a bit of apprehension and a bit of nervousness and a bit of uncertainty because you're kind of like, well, what now? And I think that's completely normal because what we're talking about is making quite a big change. And I know for some people they might think, well, you're just not drinking something, you're just stopping drinking, what's the big deal? But for so many of us, if we're honest, it's an ingrained way of life. I've said it before, we're auto-enrolled in this country in many countries around the world into drinking alcohol. So to step away and to choose a different path is something that, feels different. I do think it's becoming much more accepted now. People are like, yes, alcohol-free living can be a choice. But if we're honest, it's still a big change, especially if, like for me, you grew up in your teenage years and throughout your whole 20s into your early 30s of it being like the primary thing that you do when you're celebrating or you're socializing and so on. It's a big change. So the first thing I would say is okay to feel a bit apprehensive, maybe a bit nervous about it. And I think some of the things I focused on and I was thinking about in this first 24, 40 hours, well, what am I going to do with social situations? That was one of the big ones, like socializing. How am I going to have fun? What am I going to do when people ask me about not drinking? Am I going to get bored and am I going to get lonely? I think those were the key things that I was thinking about. And throughout, well, partly in this video, but also video is going to create, I'm going to really support you with each of those aspects to help you see that actually not only are those things untrue, but the opposite is true, that actually your life becomes more enriching, that you have greater and deeper connections and friendships in your life, that actually you have a greater control and feeling that you are in the driving seat of your life. So a lot of these things is natural to feel, but I promise you it does pass. But certainly in that first 24, 40 hours, it was in my mind. And I think some of the other things, like physiologically, the first 24, 48 hours, I kind of lost my appetite a little bit because I was like, okay, I'm a bit nervous about that. I don't think I had so much mental clarity in the first 24, 48 hours. It takes time for alcohol to kind of leave your system in terms of your blood, but also the effects to change. What I did notice, however, was quite a significant change in the first week. So if you look at the first 7 days, all of a sudden when you remove alcohol, in the first number of hours, alcohol leaves your system, but then some of the changes to your body happen over the days and weeks afterwards. The first thing I noticed was less puffiness in my face, like around my eyes, if I look back at pictures, and also my skin and my face was so puffy. Now, I was very overweight at the time. I was like 20 stone in weight. So there was obviously a lot of that, but also there was just so much puffiness on my skin. And in the first week, that started reducing. And that's because of the effects that alcohol has on our fluid systems. When you drink a lot of alcohol, you can retain a lot of fluid in your tissue, which is why it's quite common to see big drinkers looking quite puffy in their faces. Another big change within the first week was to the GI tract, to the gut, to the tummy. When you're drinking a couple of times a week, basically the alcohol is having a huge effect on your gut lining. Alcohol literally strips your gut lining. It really does affect your gut bacteria. We're learning so much about how powerful and important the gut microbiome is to our health. Like, you're seeing scientists and influencers like Dr. Megan Rossi, for example, who's done a lot of research in this area, talking about the importance of gut health. I had her on the Stompcast, my podcast, and she was talking about that actually, if we feed our gut bacteria and we look after them, not only does it improve your gut and your gut symptoms, so if you struggle with GI tract symptoms, then that can improve. It improves your mental health, your bone health, your muscular health, your focus, your immune system, everything. Alcohol has the opposite effect. So when I stopped drinking, even a week in, my stomach started to settle. I used to have, actually I've just remembered, this is one of the biggest things I noticed that stopped immediately for me. I used to have horrendous indigestion, heartburn. I used to have a bottle of Gaviscon in my fridge cabinet all of the time because I'd have to drink it several times a week because of the reflux I used to get. Since I quit alcohol, I have not had a single episode of acid reflux since, touch wood, because it's awful. Not a single episode. That settled within the first week. Everything, the poos, everything settles down and gets better. The other thing I noticed, really interestingly, even within the first week, okay, perhaps it creeped into the week 2 and 3 more so, taste of food. Food tastes better when you stop drinking alcohol. I think that was probably 2 or 3 weeks in, but the food starts tasting better, and it's absolutely true. Why? Because alcohol damages the epithelial lining on your tongue, and it chronically does that, which means that food tastes worse. Which is ironic, because a lot of the time when you see these like wine pairing with food things, the irony is that alcohol actually means you taste the food less, so food tastes better. Some downsides in the first week is you might find that you feel a bit irritable. This is, I think, because you've made quite a significant change. You moved alcohol out of the system. Your body might be craving the alcohol a little bit, because even if you don't experience addiction, then the cravings really can be there. But also, the boredom starts to creep in. And I've talked about this in a video when I was talking about sugar and dopamine with alcohol-free living. So if you haven't seen that video yet, check it out after this one. The effects of alcohol on your dopamine system. So your dopamine is your reward hormone in your brain. When you drink alcohol, you get a hit of dopamine, you feel good about it. When you remove the alcohol, we start trying to lock dopamine onto other things. And suddenly we can feel quite bored when we're not actually bored. You might find you've had a busy day, come home from work, sat down, and you think, well, I should be content to relax, but I feel bored. Trust me, one of the most important things to do is to lean into the boredom. The way to tackle the boredom is to lean into it. It's okay, it's normal, it's right, it's physiologically absolutely correct for us to sit still and not to be doing things all the time. We don't need to constantly be on our phones and meeting people all the time. It's really, really important to learn to enjoy the simple things, your own company, reading a book, just relaxing, chilling out in front of the television. It's really, really important to lean into that. And it's okay to acknowledge those feelings of boredom and just to let them pass. They do pass. That being said, it is really important. One of the biggest reasons I think people have or do struggle sometimes with dry January or the first month of alcohol-free living is that they stop drinking and therefore equate no drinking with no socializing. So because most commonly when we're drinking, our connection with people is through alcohol, when you remove the alcohol, we often lose the connection with people. Please don't do that. It is true that it requires a bit more effort to see people, because it's so easy to go to the pub. Hey mate, fancy the pub? Yeah, cool, see you in 10. Go to the pub. It's just easy, simple connection. This requires a bit more effort. I wouldn't say a huge amount more effort. You can just say, let's go for a walk in the morning, let's go for coffee, why don't we go to the gym? But yeah, planning to play tennis or doing other things like that does require more effort. But the beautiful thing about it is that when something requires more effort, there's more reward. So quick dopamine is things like sugar and alcohol, up and down, crashes of dopamine, big highs, big lows. Things that require effort, like walking and hiking up a big mountain, it takes a long time, but the peak is really high and it lasts a long time. Getting into an ice bath is very challenging thing to do, requires a lot of getting into this thing, it's freezing cold, effort. High effort, but high reward, so you get lots of dopamine and it takes a long time to drift down. So what I'm saying is that even though things like social connection might require a bit more, having to go out there and plan it and think ahead, it's really worth it. So please make sure, especially around weeknights and the weekends, that you do plan a few things. What I did was I'd try on a Friday night to have a dinner with a friend and see someone. So you're getting out, you're seeing people, you're social. Saturday morning, I'd go to the gym to get a load of dopamine in the morning on the weekend. Saturday afternoon, I'd see if someone was up for a coffee and a walk. And on Sunday, I'd try and go for a brunch with someone. There's a nice balance there of seeing people, but allowing time for yourself. Okay, let's look at some of the changes that happen as the weeks go by, up until that 4-week, 1-month period. Skin-wise, I think the puffiness continues to settle. Often, if you struggle with a lot of spots, the spots seem to disappear. I used to have terrible acne. I stopped drinking and my spots have gone away. I haven't had any acne really other than 1 or 2 little blemishes in the last 2 years since I stopped drinking. Honestly, unbelievable the difference that quitting alcohol makes to your skin. I cannot tell you. You also start to look younger. Even in the first 4 weeks, I look at the pictures from week 0, obviously day 0 to week 4, I already started looking younger. Unbelievable. Body composition wise, weight changes. I started losing weight pretty much immediately. Now this does depend on, again, a topic we talked about in another video around sugar and alcohol. If you remove the alcohol and replace that with lots and lots of sugar, obviously that's going to up your calories. You might find that there's less weight loss. I think you'll still probably lose weight if you're carrying a lot of weight like I was. But if you manage the sugar cravings, you tend to lose a lot of weight very quickly. I don't know what I lost in that first 4 weeks because I didn't really monitor my weight in that way. I really didn't want to start, obsessing over scales and all that kind of stuff. But I can tell you, I certainly noticed a difference in that. But probably more importantly, what I really noticed physically is that I had so much more energy. I cannot tell you, probably week 2 to 4, the energy level started going up. It was crazy. Not just energy in terms of concentration and work, but when I was going to the gym, I could lift harder, heavier, push more, because I started training just before I quit the alcohol, but I was really ramping it up at that time. I just felt like, come on, let's go. In the morning, I was getting up in the morning with an energy of I'm ready to get going in the day. It was absolutely amazing and incredible. So that is a big change, the weight loss, but also the energy side of things. Now, something I'm going to admit, which is very difficult, and I know a lot of people have experienced this, and people have been commenting on the YouTube videos that I've made before this, agreeing, sleep. Sleep can get really tricky to start with. I am going to make a whole video. In fact, it's going to be the next video after this one on the channel. So next Sunday, I'm going to do a video specifically on sleep and what happens to your sleep when you quit alcohol, because I think it's something most people experience. It can be quite annoying, frustrating, even distressing, but it's something you can work through. There's things that can help, but you can work through it and it'll get better. But I noticed that my sleep got worse, and effectively removing the alcohol, the brain takes time to adjust to it, the sleep does get worse, and it got worse for me for about 6 or 7 weeks. I can't exactly remember what week it was it got better, but it went, it was bad way past the 4-week period. And it can be really frustrating because you're like, what's going on? I thought the sober sleep was one of the big things that you look forward to. It's not necessarily the case. Having said that, despite the fact that the sleep was bad, I found that, yes, my energy was better. So even though I wasn't having a good night's sleep and I was having lots of nightmares and I was waking up and not really having a full deep sleep, I still found that my energy was much better. Okay, another big one, a lot of people stop drinking for their mental health because you want to feel happier, you want to feel less low mood, maybe you want to be less lethargic and less sad. Does stopping drinking in the first 4 weeks massively improve your mental health? I think it definitely makes a difference. I don't think it necessarily is like overnight you feel amazing. And there's a few reasons for this. Firstly, when you stop drinking alcohol, it does take time for the effects on the brain to wear off effectively. Why? Because alcohol is neurotoxic, it damages the brain. So the brain has to create new pathways and adapt to the non-alcoholic state. And this can take weeks or even months. I think it takes many months for all of those changes to happen, for that kind of complete readjustment to happen. And therefore it kind of makes sense. Your brain is the hardware effectively. The software is, I guess, your mental health and the programming within the brain. So if the hardware takes time to improve and get better, it's going to take time for the software to be able to, program properly and get working. That being said, you do notice improvements in your mental health, I believe. For a start, hangovers are rubbish. So when you're hungover, you're really anxious, and the days afterwards, you often feel flat and, yes, still anxious. So when you take away the alcohol, what you get, I think, is this stripped back version of you, which just feels your feels. And some of the reason I think that people go, well, actually, when I stopped drinking alcohol, I didn't feel, amazing straight away. And actually, there were some things that were painful that came up, is because we're no longer suppressing the stuff. We're not pushing that stuff down. Now, this isn't true for everyone, but I think a lot of people, like myself with my brother and with grief, partly drink or do drink to push the stuff down. And it's quite effective at doing that. It doesn't mean it's good, and it doesn't mean that in the long run it's going to do any favors, but it does suppress, right? We know that. It pushes things down. So when you remove this thing, stuff starts coming up, and you notice that over the weeks and months that you stop drinking. But it's not a bad thing. I think it's really important to say this, is that we are human beings. We need to feel our feels. We need to not demonize emotion and human emotion. These things, these feelings that you're having, they're signals, they're messages, there are things that you need to deal with and you need to look at and that you need to work through. And that is okay. And okay, this goes beyond the first month, so I'm sorry about that. But I found generally that what happens, I took away the alcohol, I felt a bit calmer, a bit more me, a bit more steady. You didn't have this with your emotions. You were kind of more natural with your undulations and feelings. And what I noticed over the weeks and months afterwards is that stuff came up. And I dealt with the stuff as it came up. I faced it. And even though sometimes the stuff that was coming up was very hard and difficult, it was really important for me to do that and to face it and to work through it. So does your mental health get better in the first few weeks? Yes, I believe it does. Does that mean you feel good throughout that whole time? No, I'd be lying to you if I said yes. And I think it would be wrong to say, yes, you're going to feel absolutely amazing when you quit, because A, that's not true, but also it makes you feel that there's something wrong with you if you don't have that experience. I believe you become a calmer version of you, you become an honest version of yourself, seeing and feeling everything that's there, but you also open this beautiful door to the joy and happiness, the potential to really truly experience your life and be there throughout, genuinely present in your life. There's a great quote that the more you feel your feelings, the easier it gets to understand them. And I think that's so true. I think in modern society, either it's our phones or distraction or dopamine or alcohol, all these things like distracting us from who we are in here, from our human experience. And if you think about your 20s and 30s, it's the time when we're really trying to learn about ourselves, understand life and what's going on with the world. But society fills us with the booze, which takes us away from the present moment and from that kind of adaptive process, from that learning process, and keeps us kind of stuck. So when you remove the alcohol, honestly, don't be surprised when things do come up and there's feels to feel. Just embrace them, own them, and I promise you it'll work out. You'll get through it. A few things that I think by the end of the month that you really notice crops up, comes up, or you realize. First of all is that the finances get way better. I think even a month in you go, oh my God, I spent so much money on these taxis to random places, booking random trips and things while you've had a few too many drinks, or agreeing to things you then have to kind of follow through on. The booze itself, the takeaways and all this stuff. Oh my God, honestly, the money that you save, even a month in, it's like, this is awesome. And I'd really recommend, actually, a little tip, if you can afford to do so, the money that you spend on alcohol each month, put it aside into a little pot and then have a target goal. either in 3 or 6 months, that you're going to treat yourself with a trip or something you're going to do. Like, I saved money up to buy a motorcycle, basically. Okay, I had to put the money away for a little while, but the point was I was working towards that goal, and now I've got this thing in my garage that I own that is literally bought with money I just spent on booze. I think it's a really good motivator, and that's something you really do realise towards the end of the month. Another thing that's beautiful that starts happening by the end of the month, I think, is that you start looking up. You start lifting your head from the kind of moment to moment of, oh God, I feel hungover, or this, I've got to go to work. You lift your head up and you start looking into the future. And I don't mean that in the sense of not being present. I mean, you start thinking, what do I want in my life? What matters to me? What are my values? What am I excited about? Oh, I really want to go on this trip. Maybe I'll book a holiday in the summer. That stuff never used to happen when we drank, did it? Let's be honest, it never used to happen. You never got around to it. We talk about these ideas when we were drinking, it would never happen. All of a sudden, you realise, even a month in, that you make things happen. You start looking into the future, you get excited about things, you think about your life and where you want to go and what you want to do and what matters to you, and you make stuff happen. On another reflective note, something that I believe is very common and experienced by most people that quit drinking is that you start to question who your friends are. And I don't mean that actually in such a negative sense, but you do kind of realise, like, which friends are truly there for me, which friends are my friends regardless whether they drink or not, and which ones are the drinking buddies. And as scary as this might be, it is a really liberating experience and process to genuinely realise who your people are. Because the people that weren't your people never were your people. They were there because you're in the pub. And that's the truth. So you're not losing something, you're just becoming aware of something you never had. Okay? But the beauty in that is you also become aware of the friends you really had who are absolutely amazing. You know who they are in your life. And I've got some incredible friends, I can call them out, Adam, Sam, Tom, I've got so many amazing friends, Chris, Vaz, people that have been there for me for a very long time and there for me and my friends regardless whether I drink or not. It's okay to have that realization that some people don't serve you. I think some of it will be who are the drinking friends, but also who are the friends that are actually toxic in your life? Who are the friends in your life that don't bring the sides out of you that you want to be brought out? Who is in your life that does bring the best version of you out? Who's there that's excited for your wins and excited to support, no, sorry, that's the wrong way of putting it, excited for your wins and happy to support you when you're struggling? It's really, people often say, who are your friends that are there for you when you're down? But who are your friends that are there for you when you're up? Who's there texting you saying, I'm really proud of you, you did amazing that job in getting that job, you did amazing, congratulations on this, or I'm so happy for you in your relationship. Who are the people that are there for you when you're up? It's just as important as the people there for you when you're down. It's a separate topic, but a really important one. Embrace this reflection. It's a good thing. A lot of the stuff that will come up in this first month, aside from the physical change, aside from the stuff you'll notice when it comes to reflection, is because you're suddenly facing stuff that we should have faced a long time ago. And that's okay. Don't suppress it. Okay, so we haven't covered everything that you're going to experience in the first month of not drinking alcohol, but I wanted to kind of pick up on some of the things that are quite common that I think is likely that you're going to experience. I'm going to be diving into sleep in the next video because I think that's a huge topic that most people will experience when quitting alcohol, and I really want to talk about it. It's actually really exciting. It's really interesting. Before we finish the video, what I'd like to say is that look, as you come to the end of the month, if you are there now, if you're watching this video and you're in the first month, you come to the end of the first month, you're around that time, maybe doing dry January, and you're thinking, well, what now? Will I continue? What I would say to you is this, and this is me being really honest with you. I think to have the full, I wouldn't say even the full experience, to have 80% of the benefit of quitting alcohol, I think you need to do 100 days. 3 months to 100 days. That's roughly what you need to do. Why? Because actually so much of the benefits that comes from quitting drinking takes time to be realised. The sleep takes 7 or 8 weeks to kind of get to a sober state of sleep. It takes several months for the brain, for those reasons, to adapt and enter the kind of non-alcohol state. Several months, it takes many months, even a year in, your brain's still adapting to this really. A lot of these effects, a lot of these amazing positive changes take time. So when you do 30 days, yeah, there's loads of positives and definitely enjoy. I'm not saying that there's not positive. There's loads of really cool things that happen in the first 30 days. But honestly, the big stuff happened when you carried on up to that 100-day mark and beyond. That's my opinion. So look, you guys, you should do what you want to do. And you might be watching this and you're not even actually quitting alcohol, you're reducing alcohol intake. That's absolutely fine. But if you want to do this and give it the good go and give it the full go, I'd recommend at least 100 days. I had someone tag me actually on socials the other day who'd heard an episode I did on the Stompcast with Catherine Gray, where we were talking, which she advocates for doing 100 days alcohol free. And they'd done that and gone, thank God I carried on past the 30 days. So hey, and you should also, by the way, check out the Stompcast. So much content, alcohol-free living there. Right, we'll come to the end of the video. Thank you so much for sticking around with me. And I really appreciate all of you, honestly. And, I'm still on this alcohol-free journey. I've not arrived. There's no arrival point, which is beautiful of this. It's a constant journey. 2 years in, I'm still learning. I'll probably do a video at some point of the first 2 years, what I learned. I know I did do that. That was the whole point. But I'll kind of do more reflective pieces, I guess, looking at the longer term view. But I really appreciate it, guys, honestly, in the comments and stuff like that. Like, it really warms my heart. It makes me feel good. It makes me want to make more videos. I really love this topic, and I really hope that more people will experience the joys of alcohol-free living as time goes on. If you haven't already, do give the video a thumbs up. It helps with the algorithm. Leave a comment and support each other, and of course, subscribe. See you all in the next one, guys, where we'll be talking about sleep. Goodbye.